Professional speaker Mr. Douglas Kruger is the only speaker in Africa who have won the South African National Championship for public speaking a record 5 times. He is also the only second place world champion. Competing in Reno, Nevada in 2004, he achieved the highest ranking Africa has ever attained in his prestigious contest. He is the author of 50 Ways to Become a Better Speaker, published in South Africa and Nigeria, 50 Ways to Position Yourself as an Expert, and co-author of So You Are in Charge, Now What? 50 Ways to Become a Better Leader. Between the ages of 10 and 12, he won South Africa's skateboarding championship 3 times. During this time, he also got his first taste of the publishing world when a newspaper published his 3-panel comic strips for a duration of a couple of years. In his 20s, he won South African championship for public speaking through Toastmaster International, 5 times during this period of time. With this record, having 2 books accepted for publishing by Penguin, please help me in welcoming Mr. Douglas Kruger.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Well, good afternoon, ladies.
Hi.
I'd like to start off by congratulating the 2 ladies right in front for their bravery, because you never know what's going to happen when you get a motivational speaker and you're in the front row. You could end up with that guy who runs up to you saying, "You can learn to be all you can be!" Sorry, I think a little spit on your blazer there. Sorry about that. Well, the message this afternoon is going to be a combination of some ideas about how you can improve your lives and some insights into a few things to do with public speaking, which is my world. By a quick survey, does anyone here actually enjoy speaking in public? Okay, a few hands around the room. They did a survey once in the States where they asked people, what is your number 1 fear? And death came second. Public speaking was at the top of the list. And what that teaches us is that at your average funeral, most people would rather be the guy in the box than the one delivering the eulogy. And yet this is now what I do for a living, and I'm very blessed to do it, and I absolutely love it. I get the chance to travel around the world, meet people from different cultures. This year I had the chance to be in places as far afield as Singapore and Taipei. Before the end of the year, I'm speaking on the island of Mauritius, flying back to Asia. It's an incredible thing to do for a living. But you know, when I get to these far-off destinations, you look back over how you build a career and a life. And I was thinking the other day, we pass through a lot of doors to get to where we want to be. And the very first door that I ever walked through was fresh out of high school. And you'll face this first door in just a few years' time. And I can remember how terrified I was when I walked through my very first door. Fresh out of high school, I wasn't quite sure what to do with my life. And I had this vague idea that I enjoyed speaking, that I enjoyed presenting. One of my teachers said, "Well, Doug, why don't you try out for radio?" I thought, brilliant idea, why not try it? Now, what are some of your favorite radio stations? What do you like?
YFM.
Yeah? Good stuff, good range and mix of radio stations there. I found myself a small soft target in Johannesburg called Horizon Stereo. Have you ever heard of Horizon Stereo?
No.
Okay? Like one person said yes, that tells you how big Horizon Stereo was. But now, I didn't know how you're supposed to go about applying for a job. I had no idea. So one day, I rocked up on their front doorstep. I literally walked through the door and I found the station manager, and with no experience whatsoever, no idea how to do this, I shook his hand and I said, "Hi, my name is Doug, I want to be on your radio station." This guy looked me up and down. And he had that tired look of an older person who's seen this before. And he said, "All right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you 5 minutes." Now, what I thought he meant was 5 minutes worth of airtime at some future date when you're prepared, you can prove yourself. What he actually meant was, you're live on air in 5 minutes' time. Talk about being thrown in the deep end. Now, I had two choices. I could either back out and run away and maybe never get the chance again, or I could sit down in front of a microphone and try. But now, if you've ever been into a radio station, you'll know that it's all these sort of knobs and dials and flashing lights and all sorts of equipment that I had never seen before in my life. This guy walks me down and he sits me down behind a microphone. And he disappears out of the room. Then I see him reappear through this large glass window pane in the next room, and that's the controller's booth. And he sits down, crosses his arms, and stares at me, unmoving. So, we get to about 2 minutes before the show is supposed to begin, and I'm starting to panic. And you know when you start to feel the adrenaline, your fingers are shaking. And I'm looking around, what can I play, grab an old CD, how do the computers work, trying to figure things out, and I realize I'm in the deep end here. I don't know how anything works. I look through the glass, and this guy is still just sitting there, unmoving. He's not even blinking often enough. And it gets down to about 30 seconds before the show is supposed to begin. And at that stage, I get to that level of fear, and I wonder if you've ever experienced this, where you taste a coppery taste in your mouth. It's like you're so afraid that your mouth is trying to digest your own teeth. And I think to myself, you know what, if I just get up off this chair and dash next door now, maybe there's still enough time to chicken out, quit, and let him take over. I wasn't prepared for this, I don't know what I'm supposed to say, I don't know how to work anything, and then he makes his first movements in all of this time. He leans forward and presses down on a little button in front of him. His voice comes on over the intercom system, and he says, "Do you see that little red light above your shoulder?" So I look at it and I say, "Yeah, I see it." And he says, "When that little red light goes on, you are live on air." He's one of these guys who likes to talk with the finger pointed at you. And then he says, "In front of thousands of people." He also liked to exaggerate. It was probably like him and my mom listening that day. Then he stops and continues staring at me. So we're down to about 5 seconds before the show's supposed to begin. And at this stage, I think I can't possibly do this. And I'm about to get up off my seat when the little red light goes on and I go, "Hi. You're listening to Horizon Stereo." So far, so good. Then my voice breaks. "It's 10:45. Now, ladies, you may not have this problem, but for a guy, that's devastating. So, the needles go into the red, he jumps half a foot off his chair, comes back down, and I try and talk my way through this radio show. And I promise you, looking back on it, it was probably the worst broadcast in the history of radio. But, after about 5-6 minutes, I started to get a little bit of a rhythm going. I started to find some thoughts, some ideas, and to move the show forward. It got to the end of 10 minutes, and suddenly the little red light disappears, goes off. And I look through at this guy who's still just sitting there, unmoving, unblinking. I think, uh-oh, all right, let's go face the music. I walk next door, I look him in the eyes, and he looks at me and he says, "How would you like to host the midday show between 10 and 2 every day this week?" And that was how I got my first job. And now, I don't need to brag, but the pay rhymed with hero. Absolutely nothing. There was no pay. But the interesting thing was not just getting a foot in the door and doing a little bit of radio work. The interesting thing was the idea that it put in my mind, which is this. Sometimes you can walk through a door, try something crazy, and change the course of your life. But you have to walk through that door and try. You have to give yourself permission to try. And folks, if I'm honest with myself, out of every 10 big things like that I've ever tried in my life, I reckon probably about 2 of them actually worked out. But those 2 can be life-changing. They can alter the course of your trajectory. 2 things out of every 10, but you have to give yourself permission to try. The whole idea that people see public speaking as being more scary than death tells us something about what it is that we fear. We fear the judgment of others. We fear their laughter. I reckon we should give people permission to laugh at us, so that we've given ourselves permission to try. What's the worst laughter you've ever faced? I'll tell you mine.
No.
I just got a chance to have a look at your gym just up the way here. I go to a gym in Joburg, close to home. One day I walk in and there are the rows of treadmills all lined up one next to the other. And I notice something, and it's that I'm the only guy about to use the treadmills. All the rest are in use by ladies. And the only one that's available is right in the front, right in the middle. So there I am in my little gym shorts and my little vest, and I'm feeling quite self-conscious. But what the heck, I get onto my treadmill and I put it up to 4 kilometers an hour. It's a slow walk. And then you start to forget the world around you, and I put it up to 6 and then 8 kilometers an hour, the beginning of a jog. Eventually I push it up to 14 kilometers an hour. Now if you've ever been on a treadmill at 14 kilometers an hour, you'll know at that point you're committed to what you're doing. So there I am, I'm going flat out, the sweat is running down my forehead, and a friend I haven't seen since high school spots me from the far side of the gym. And he comes walking over and he stops next to my treadmill and does the logical thing to do. He goes, "Hey Doug, how you doing?" So I do the logical thing to do. I turn to shake his hand. The thing that happened next happened surprisingly quickly. He found himself shaking hands with fresh air. But now, if you're really thinking this one through, you'll have gotten one step ahead of the story. You'll know, on a treadmill, you don't just fall down. It also spits you out the back. And if you do it just right, you can take out like 3 or 4 ladies in leotards on your way back. Sometimes we have to learn to laugh at ourselves. Sometimes the laughter, the judgment of others is unavoidable. But folks, you know what the terrifying thing is? Sometimes we assume that people are laughing or judging us, and we paralyze ourselves with fear. To walk through doors and change your life, you have to simply have the courage to try. At the end of the presentation, I'd like to leave you with a little handout with 5 ideas about walking through doors that can change your life, your trajectory, make a difference in your world, help you to get to the dreams that you have for yourself. The first one is simply walk through doors often. The second idea is don't get pressured through the wrong door. It's amazing in the speaking and presenting that I do, when I talk to people about dreams and goals and aspirations, how many people are living out the dreams of others? I find that a little sad. You know, there is so much pressure on us to do what other people want us to do with our lives. And that can come in many forms. I mean, the simplest version can be our folks with the best of intentions, telling us which job to get. Or it can be down to the worst version, which is the peer pressure that pushes us in ways that damage us. But let's just stop for a second and look at the job thing. Through the course of your life, you'll be told which career paths to take, what to do with your life, and sometimes that's not in alignment with your dreams, with what you want for yourself. And it's amazing how often we give in to the idea that we can either have our dream, or we can have a successful career. I don't believe that there has to be that distinction. I think you can have both. And sometimes it's a case of sticking to what it is that you love. To give you a strange example, there's a guy named Charles M. Schulz. Do anyone know who Charles M. Schulz is? Or was, rather. He passed away a while ago. Any guesses? Charles Schulz was a cartoonist. He was the author of a cartoon strip called Peanuts. He's the father of Charlie Brown and Snoopy. Now, he started off drawing this comic strip in the 1950s. And let me run you through his workday. This is how hard he worked. He would wake up in the morning and have a donut. That was his regular breakfast. Then he would spend half an hour thinking about what would go into the cartoon strip for that day. Then he'd spend about 45 minutes drawing the cartoon strip, and then he was done. When he passed away after 50 years of drawing Peanuts, he was wealthier than 2 members of the Beatles. He was one of the wealthiest celebrities ever to have lived, only beaten by people like Michael Jackson. Now think about how hard he worked every day. It's like an hour and a half of doing something that he adored. But we're never told that. I wasn't told that there is such a creature as a full-time professional speaker. No one tells you you can do that for a living. These are things that are never shared with us. I don't believe that you have to pick between a career and your dreams. There is always a way of making your dream your career. Number 2, don't get pressured to go through the wrong door. Idea number 3, still talking walking through doors. When you walk through a door, You can teach people how to treat you. One of the wonderful things that I get to study as a result of working as a speaker is body language. How body language creates impressions and the things that you can do with it. This is a field of knowledge that you can use literally to change just about everything in your life. And I'd actually like to show you some practical examples. You can teach people to treat you as someone who is terrified, or you can teach people to treat you like an authority figure based on your body language. And of course, you can study what people are doing with their body language and tell a great deal about their intentions, their motives, their likes and dislikes, and it's incredibly useful. And it's down to simple little things like, let me ask you ladies, how can you tell if a guy is nervous when he's talking to you? There are specific things that guys do with their body language. Any guesses, any thoughts? Yes?
They will either rub the back of their neck or run their head, their hands over or through their hair.
Yes.
Or they will look down at their feet and blush.
Fantastic. Give her a round of applause. That's thorough. You've been studying men. Absolutely. And in fact, universally around the world, the number one sign of nervousness for a guy is rubbing the palms of his hands. It's usually something to do with the hands. So exactly as you said, it's the hand behind the neck, it's the something to do with the hands. And that's how guys give away nerves. Can anyone guess what the number one sign of nerves is for women worldwide? And it does vary from culture to culture, but there's one thing that most women will do when they're nervous. Any guesses? Yeah? I wish you could see this from my perspective. I've got like 100 people doing different things. The number one sign of nervousness for ladies is crossing their arms in front of them like this. Just like protective gesture. Now, when we're aware of these things, we can control them by design. I've spent over 10 years working in the speaking field now. Sometimes I get audiences with a few thousand people in them, and I can tell you I'm terrified. The fear never quite goes away, but you do learn to control it. And here's a little secret about body language and about the impressions that you create. People only have access to your internal state according to what you show. If you don't want to show the fear, they will never have access to it. So, let me show you some of the differences here. I'll make this practical. If I walk onto a stage and I'm very self-contained, very fast, and take up very little space, watch how nervous it makes me look. Good morning, ladies. My name is Douglas Kruger, and today I'd like to teach you 5 things about how you can use body language to look confident. Right, now let's slow that down a bit and we'll spread it out, because sometimes confidence is about taking up more space and more time. So, same again. Good morning, ladies. My name is Douglas Kruger, and today I'd like to show you 5 ways that you can use body language to look powerful. Okay, now let's take it too far. Let's get a little bit arrogant, shall we? Hey. I'm Doug. And I'm going to show you 5 ways to be powerful. You teach people how to treat you according to your body language. It's a fascinating world. Now, ladies, we can do a half-day course, maybe even a full-day one, on how body language works. My point today is not to go into an excruciating amount of detail. It's simply to show you the possibilities. The way you use body language teaches others how to treat you, and you can control it. Even for people who spend their lives speaking in public, acting, being aware of their body language, showing confidence, the fear is there, it never goes away. But they know how to control it. And they know how to show what they want to show. It's about what you portray. So, our ideas on doors. Walk through doors often, you can change the course of your life. Don't go through the wrong door out of pressure. Rather, make decisions from a position of power, not out of a position of insecurity. The third one, when you walk through a door, teach people how to treat you. The fourth one is probably my favorite because it's closest to my heart. The biggest doors in the universe are books. Maybe tedious to have a talk on books, but I adore books. Here's what we do wrong. We force kids to read books about the things that they're supposed to read, to get the degree they're supposed to get, to follow the course they're supposed to follow. There was something a little different that happened in my life. My family was kind of anarchy. When I grew up, my parents loved reading, but we could read anything. And we were encouraged to read anything, whether it was comic books or horror novels or anything. The idea was to learn to love reading, not to tell us what to read. So basically, it's to learn how to think, not what to think. I was 8 years old when I first read my first novel, and my parents still don't know this. It was a horror novel, Misery by Stephen King. My friends reckon that explains a lot about why I am the way I am today. The upside to it was I now pursue reading because I love it, not because I had to. And I always think that, it's funny how we don't think about the problems that we have in relation to books. Every problem that a human being faces has been faced before, and it's hidden somewhere in a book. And if we can get away from just reading the textbooks, just reading the things that we're told to read, and start following what we love, it's all out there. The last book that I read was on bodybuilding. Now, no school in the world is ever going to teach you to go and find a book about bodybuilding. But I read a whole 1,000 pages of Arnold Schwarzenegger teaching you how to get bigger. And ending with hasta la vista, baby. But I do it because I love it. And I tell you what, one of the greatest favors my parents ever did was to give me the freedom to read and to teach me to love it. Walk through doors often, you can change the trajectory of your life. When you walk through doors, make sure that you're choosing out of power and not insecurity. When you walk through doors, teach people how to treat you. Books are the biggest doors in the universe. And the final idea to do with the door that I'd like to share with you is simply this. If one door's locked, there is always another. There's always another way of doing things. I grew up in a family that lived in a nice neighborhood, but we were kind of the odd ones out. We weren't desperately poor, but we went through some pretty rough times financially, from time to time. And I can remember one of the things that was quite embarrassing is because I went to a very good school, the other parents would arrive in like the BMWs and the Mercedes, and they would like open the door and expensive air would escape out of the Our situation wasn't quite like that. Have you ever seen the Spud movies? Yeah. You know the dad from the Spud movies? Yeah. That's my dad. Right down to the red hair and the red beard and the total lack of social skills. I love him dearly. Very creative man, but we struggled a little bit financially. Now, we could always tell when my dad was arriving at school, because from about 3 or 4 blocks away, you could hear the car. First, it was the high-pitched whine of the brakes, and then you could hear the engine as it started to break down on its way to the school. He had this old Peugeot station wagon that our kids at school called Puff the Magic Peugeot. And every afternoon, it would arrive at the school and break down right in front of the main gate. And like my dad had no trouble with getting the 2 coolest, biggest kids and saying, help me push the car down the street. So, that was kind of the background that I grew up in. And when the kids around you at school are playing with things like, at the time, it was like Nintendo sets were the big thing, and some of the kids were able to afford quad bikes and things like that, there was no way we could afford that for my family. But what my dad did was he looked for a different way to entertain us. I can remember he walked out into the backyard one day and had a look around to see what he had to work with. And there was only one really noticeable feature. Next door to us, there was this enormous tree. And at about 30 feet up, probably about the height of the railings over here, there was a big branch coming over into our side of the yard. My dad got this idea. He thought, rope swing. So he gets hold of a rock, and he puts the rock into an old sack. And then he ties the sack shut with the end of a rope. And then he stood beneath this branch and he tried to hurl the rock to get it over the branch. When he regained consciousness, he had created what became an epic rope swing in our neighborhood. And when most of us think of a rope swing, we probably picture an old peach tree and maybe a little bit of chain and an old bicycle tire. Like the kids swing back and forth for about 5 minutes and then they get bored and forget about it. Ours was nothing like that. For starters, you didn't sit on anything. You held onto handlebars at the end of a rope. And then what you would do is you would run the entire length of the yard. And as you got to the end of the length of rope, your feet would come out from under you, and they would go up over the roof of the house on this side. And then you'd come back down, touch down, run across the yard, and then your feet would go over the telephone wires on that side. We had surprisingly few fatalities.
The fact that
And most of those were kids nobody missed anyway, so it wasn't. But that creativity, there's always a different way of doing things. And what's interesting to me looking back is the swing, which was the cheap solution to entertaining the family, way outperformed the Nintendo sets and the quad bikes. The rich kids would come to my house to play on the swing. When one door is locked, there is always another door. What is your fondest dream? What's the thing closest to your heart? If you could have your life designed in any way you wanted, what is the thing most precious to you? Ladies, if you ever find that there is a locked door between you and that dream, ignore that door and find another one. There is always another way. You may get a no in one way, you will find a yes in another direction if you simply keep at it. It requires creative thinking. It is hard to pursue your goals. But to live a life that is not your dream, not your goal, not your desire, seems a little sad to me. It is entirely possible to keep fighting your way through those doors and live the life you want to live. I honestly believe to the core of my being, that you are not separated from your goals by a number of years. You are separated from your goals by a number of actions. And that puts the ball back in your court. Thank you so much for your time. God bless.
Thank you very much for allowing us, classes of 2018 and 2019 to feed off your knowledge and teaching us what you have taught us today. And I think everyone had the same experience as I had. I learned something and I'm willing to apply it to my life. And I hope everyone in the audience would agree with me if I said you were one of the best speakers we've had here.
Yeah.